So, welcome everybody, welcome to this new Friend of the Sea webinar. Today we are going to talk about albatrosses and other seabirds by catching fishing gears. Prevention and conservation measures, Puerto de Celeiro case study. So, we are ready to start. My name is Mario Passoni. I'm substituting Dr. Paolo Brai, and I'm the scientific officer at Friend of the Sea. And with me this evening we have Manuel Bermudes Diez, project manager of Puerto de Celeiro. So how it will work this webinar? I will host and handle the first part with an introduction about seabirds and threats of the seabirds. And then Manuel will handle the second part, showing a case history and how the company for which is working, that is Puerto de Celeiro, is fighting against the bycatch of seabirds. Puerto de Celeiro is a company certified by Friend of the Sea, so they are selling products certified by Friend of the Sea. One more information before we officially start. The next webinar will be on the 14th of July 2020 in the afternoon, and will be about sharks. So the impact of finning and fishing activities on sharks. Okay, so who is Friend of the Sea? Friend of the Sea, first of all, belongs to the World Sustainability Organization, and is an international program of certification of products from sustainable aquaculture and fisheries activities. We have certified over 1,000 companies from more than 100 countries worldwide. And Friend of the Sea has a kind of sister that is Friend of the Earth, that is the equivalent, but is certifying products from sustainable agriculture and farming. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, this evening we are going to talk about seabirds or marine birds. Seabirds are birds that are adapted to life within the marine environment. So compared to the other birds, they can live longer, over 70 years, for example, the albatrosses. They used to breed later, and they have fewer young. So it means that, for example, albatrosses, penguins, they used to lay during the breeding season just one egg per time. So it's a very small number. They nest in colonies, which can vary in size from a few dozen birds to millions. And they can undertake long annual migrations. For example, some albatross, they can fly in one journey for about 1,000 miles. And they can circumnavigate the entire globe in only 46 days. So they are incredible animals and birds. They feed both at the ocean surface and below it. They can dive into the water up to 10 meters, 12 meters on depth. The seabirds can be divided in 5 groups. The Spanishy forms, in which the most representative is the penguins. The Procellari forms, like the albatross, the petrels, the pelicaniforms, like as the name suggests, the pelicans, and some of the charadriforms, like the gulls. And at the end, 2 of the 3 species of phalaropes. So you can see on the pictures that we are showing here in this webinar some seabirds, the most famous at least. But why we are making this webinar today? Because today is the very first World Albatross Day. So there are 13 countries that have joined the ACAP, the Agreement on Conservation of albatrosses and petrels that started in 2004. The mission of this society is to conserve albatrosses and petrels internationally. And this year the target is to eradicate island pests like rodents, cats, pigs, mice, and so on, because they are a threat to these seabirds because they can feed on their eggs. And it's important, of course, to say that Friend of the Sea supports ACAP awareness efforts. So let's go talking about albatrosses. They are present worldwide, with the exception of the North Atlantic and in the area of the equator. They are the biggest seabirds and the biggest birds at all around the world. They are the largest birds, with a wingspan up to 3.7 meters. Are impressive, really. They used to feed on squid, fish, and krill. Krill is a small crustacean that belongs to the zooplankton group. They are colonial, nesting, and as I said before, they used to lay one egg per breeding attempt. They are monogamous. What does it mean? Means that they choose one partner and they keep this partner for the rest of their life. And they live very long. So, for example, in this picture, the number 2, you can see an albatross that is called Wisdom, and apparently is 70 years old. Impressive. So probably it has got a partner for 60 years. And albatrosses are famous because they have a strong sense of smells that is stronger compared to the other birds. There are 22 species of albatrosses around the world, and here in this graphic you can see the morphology of the albatrosses. The seabirds, around the 50% of the species of seabirds have declining in the last years. 1/3 of these species are threatened with extinction. So the situation is worrying. Albatrosses, gadfly, petrels, and penguins are the groups most at risk, as you can see in this graphic below. And here there is the list of the IUCN status about albatrosses, and 15 of the 22 albatrosses species are threatened with extinction. But what are the threats to seabirds? Basically are bycatch, invasive species, overfishing, climate change, hunting, and disturbances. What does it mean? It means that, for example, in this graphic, in this bar, you can see that 100 species of seabirds are affected by bycatch. 165 are affected by invasive species, and so on. So bycatch and invasive species are the biggest issues to seabirds. Here we can see our graphics, and we can find out that the bycatch is the biggest threat for albatross. So 95% of the species are threats by bycatch, 62% of them by invasive species, and the 38% of them by climate change. And in this graphic, what we can understand from this graphic is that starting from 1970 to 2010, something started a competition between commercial fishing activities, and so fishing vessels and so on, and seabirds. And from this graphic, we can understand that with the increasing number of fishing activities, there is a correlation with the decreased number of species and specimen of seabirds. So there is a correlation. And here there is another graphic with this map where it's possible to have a look about where there is more competition between seabirds and fishing activities, and are highlighted by red. So this is a very beautiful infographic that we made some months ago, and is summarizing the risk, the threats of albatrosses. So there are different threats for albatrosses. For example, the degradation of breeding habitat and predation of chicks by invasive rodents, ingestion or entanglement in marine plastic debris, food shortage due to dwindling fish stock, but the largest threat is getting caught in fishing gear set by commercial fishing fleets. So here we are showing some solution, and we are going to talk better about some methods to reduce the impact of bycatch on albatrosses. Until 1980, there were no solution, or nobody was taking care about the situation of seabirds. But starting from 1980s, something started. Incidental mortality of seabirds on Longlines first reported from bird, then the recoveries. And by the end of the decade, work to assess the scale of the problem and to develop solutions had begun. So something started to move in 1980s. In 1990s, Australian vessels started using bird scaring lines to avoid bait loss to seabirds. And then in 1997, Alaska bycatch regulations were adopted, including line weighting, that means zero bycatch. In 2006, in South Africa have been applied some regulations, and so on. And at the end, the CCAMLR, the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, introduced a seasonal closure during the breeding season, discard management, bird scaring lines, live weighting, and night setting. And this dropped in bycatch from 6,000 albatross per year to practically zero. In these chaotic graphs, we can understand the potential impacts of fishing gears on seabirds, with direct and indirect consequences. So let's talk a little bit more about the different fishing methods and their impact on seabirds and albatrosses. For example, the trawlers. Many years mortality is not seen until observer on board noticing that many birds had serious interaction with the cables. And we will get back on this argument about trawlers in a few slides. But what we can understand from these numbers and this data is that longlines and especially gillnets have a very strong impact on the seabirds. It's estimated that from 160,000 to 320,000 seabirds are accidentally hooked or killed on longlines globally each year. The number is increasing if we focus on gillnets. Almost 400,000 seabirds killed every year. So the numbers are impressive. And for this reason, Friend of the Seas started a project, a conservation project, in order to create awareness and do something to reduce the impact of fishing activities on these seabirds. So there are some mitigation measures that are possible to be applied. For example, for trawlers, there are two mitigation methods. First of all, regarding trawling and trawlers, birds that forage behind fishing boats can collide without warp cables and become injured. Or otherwise, they can get into the fishing net and they can die. So, which are the mitigation methods? First of all, the bird scaring streamer lines that are also known as tory lines. A tory line is a line with streamers that is towed from an high point near the stern as baited hooks are deployed. As the vessel moves forward, the rung on the line creates an aerial segment from which streamers are suspended at regular intervals. So basically the seabirds are scared by the movement and of the streamers, and they get away. Then there is the bird buffers. With this method, a protective curtain of streamers extends in two directions from the back of the vessel, dangling colorful streamers from four rigid arms to scare off foraging birds. And then the last solution should be to install a snatch block at the stern of the vessel to draw the net monitoring cable close to the water to reduce its area extent. Then another mitigation measures are to every time a fishing vessel finish to fish their fishing activities is fundamental, is very important to remove entangled fish and bedding material from the net and from the boat to discourage bird attendance during gear shooting. Minimize the time the net is on the water surface during hauling through proper maintenance of winches and good deck practices. So all these suggestions are something feasible, and then when I will let Manuel talk about their case history, we will have more information about how a company can improve its fishing activities by applying these mitigation measures. Then, what about the gillnets? So, first of all, what is a gillnet? A gillnet is a net, a fishing net, that is at the sea, and as you can see here, I hope you can see it very well, is a kind of wall. So, fish are entangled into the mesh of the net, but this can happen also to some seabirds, especially with regards to penguins and common mark. So, which are the mitigation measures? For sure, increasing the visibility of the net to seabirds is the first line of defense against accidental capturing them. In this way, if you highlight the net and increase the visibility, even with lighting, the birds can realize that there is an obstacle and turn and do not get entangled into the net. And then the night setting. The night setting is a very smart solution. Why is a very smart solution? Because most of the seabirds are active and are hunting during the day. So if you deploy the nets during the night, the risk to get entangled the seabirds reduced drastically. And another suggestion, another point, fundamental point, is that wherever there is a massive concentration of seabirds, would be better to do not fish, because in this way the company is going to reduce the chance to get entangled the seabirds. And at the end, the mitigation measures about the long lines. So again, it's possible to use the streamer tory lines, and then apply a wave to the long lines. So seabirds can still access to the bait hooks from the time they leave a long line vessel. By adding lead weight to the lines, they sink more rapidly and reduce the chance of bird being snagged. Because as I said at the beginning of the webinar, these seabirds can dive into the water up to 10 meters of depth. But if you apply the weight, the bait is going down more than 10 meters, and so this is reducing the chance to get entangled and to hurt the seabirds. So if I can add something, the best solution should be to apply more than one mitigation measures. So for example, for the long lines, to apply the streamer tory lines, the line weighting, and then to the night setting. This would be the best solution. Another solution is to apply the side setting, because if you put the long line from the side, it's more difficult for the seabird to get into the water and get the bait. And in the end, a list of the various mitigation measures correlated to the various fishing methods. Okay. So, what are the Friend of the Sea initiatives to reduce seabirds bycatch in fisheries? First of all, in the new version of our FOSS Wild standard, the version number 4, we introduce different requirements that are requesting to mitigate the impact on seabirds and not only. So the target is to reduce the bycatch in general. So by following the requirements that we applied in the FOSS Wild standard, we are going to let the companies reduce the impact. Then we created recently, at the beginning of the year, 2020, a petition to lead companies and government to engage at reducing bycatch. So if you want to know more about it, you can easily go on our website, go on the page Conservation Projects, find the campaign page about albatrosses, and sign up the petition. And then at the end, we make awareness activities like the webinar of today, and we make dedicated posts on our social media channels, and we support the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Okay, so I have concluded this first part. Manuel, can you activate your microphone?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. So just tell me when I have to move to the other slide by slide, and I will do it for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mario. Well, good afternoon to everyone. And first, I'm going to talk about my port, Puerto de Celeiro. That is a fishing port situated on the north-west coast of Spain, in the region of Galicia, and is a fishing port specialized in longlining, and its main product is European hake that is commercialized fresh and is commercialized mainly in the Spanish market. Okay, in 1994, the 65 Celeiro ship owners decided to create an organization that has two different sides. On the one side is a private company that applies the business criteria to the management of the fishing port, and on the other side is an association which represents the interest of the fishermen, the interest of the fleet. And and develop project to improve the activity. Okay, this is one of our longliners, and longlining is traditional way of fishing in Celeiro, but in the 80s and in the 90s there was another part of the fishing fleet. There was some bottom trawlers, and in 2002 it was made an important decision that is specialized only the fleet in the fishing of longline hake. So specialized only in longlining with three different objectives. First, reduce the energy consumption, the energy cost, and so reduce the carbon emissions. Second, reduce the discards, focus on a more selective way of fishing. And the third one, improve the quality of the product. We know that longline hake is a higher quality product, very demanded by the Spanish market, and a higher price than the same species, the same European hake catch by trawlers is paid €2 less than a hake catch by longline. So for us, it's a good business. And these three objectives were recognized, mainly the environmental objectives, by one of our customers, by the Carrefour supermarkets, that in Paris, in an event in Paris in 2015, recognized Puerto de Celeiro's fishing fleet as one of its providers with a better strategy to fight against the global warming. In this map, you can see our fishing grounds that are the Northwest Atlantic, where the European hake has all the environmental indicators in green. The status of the stock is proper. We are fishing in maximum sustainable yield. So the state of the fisheries is good, and we commercialize, as I said, fresh hake and with the eco label of Puerto de Celeiro and Friend of the Sea. This is how we catch the hake, traditional way, one by one. That is the reason of the highest quality for this seafood product. And as I said, we are happy because the Spanish market recognized this quality with a good price, and that's the main reason why we don't export. We only export a small amount of this hake because it's difficult to find a better market than the Spanish. This is one of our last projects. Last year, we implanted the blockchain technology with Carrefour, in order to improve the traceability of the European hake commercialized by Puerto de Celeiro. So with a smartphone, you can have all the information about the fish that you have bought. You can know the name of the boat that catches the hake, in which fishing ground. You can consult the fishing license of the boat. Of course, the Friend of the Sea certification. You can see a nice video explaining everything about hake and the fishing of hake that you can consult in the below link. And you can know all the traceability developed by Puerto de Celeiro and Carrefour since the fish was caught on board until it arrives to your favorite Carrefour supermarket. So I think we have achieved a very high level of traceability, and that's good for the customer. Of course, we are worried about the plastics, and every plastic that we generate on board, or all the plastics that we catch with our fishing gears, are bring to Puerto de Celeiro, and then here we send it to EcoAlf, that is an organization which elaborates coats and trousers and some fashion t-shirts from this plastic recovered from the sea. If you want to consult its website, is quite nice. 15 years ago, we wanted to know if our fishing fleet, our long-lining fleet, was having real problems about seabirds bycatch, and we developed a project with a Spanish organization, Sociedad Española de Ornitología, that belongs to BirdLife, and in 2 different fishing trips, 2 observers of this organization quantified the seabird bycatch rate that we were having. And the results were that average was that we were having 11 interactions with seabirds per fishing day. And the type of seabirds were not belong to the red list. So we thought that not belong to the red list, but we have to decrease these interactions. So based on the document that you are seeing in the slide, and you can consult on this link, this document was elaborated by the University of Barcelona with other partners, and is based on experience on the traditional longliners in the Mediterranean Sea. And it document provides some instructions how to reduce the seabirds bycatch. 90% of what is said here is applied to our fishing fleet, and so we apply some of these instructions. First, and what I think is the most effective, is to practice the night setting. Night setting, very important, night setting without outside lights on board, and with a fast sinking of the fishing line. I think that is the best solution, the best instruction to reduce the seabirds bycatch. Traditionally, we operate with night setting, but it's true that sometimes the outside lights of the boats were turned on, and so we provide instructions to reduce, to eliminate it. And also about the sinking, we sink the line with some heavy stones, some of them of 20 kilograms. And that's why it's very important that the line arrives to the bottom very soon before the sunrise. And so with this combination of heavy stones and high setting speed, higher than 8 knots, we think that we are achieving the best way to avoid seabirds bycatch. Repeat, night setting without outside lights and with a fast sinking. Okay, of course, we practiced this night setting all the year, but this month of the year, June, at the north fishing grounds, the night is very short, and we finish the setting of the line with daylight. And in that case, we use torii lines to scare the seabirds. On this photo, you can see the shape of two longliners, and that's because all longliners must set the line at the same time, at the same speed, in order to avoid tangling between the lines of the different boats. Okay, that's during the setting of the line. But seabirds bycatch also can happen during the hauling of the line. And in this case, the seabirds come on board alive. So we also we have provided instructions to the fisherman how to catch the seabirds on board, how to cut the line or the hook depending on where the hook is, and how to release the animals, the seabirds. Okay, after these instructions, these prevention measures, 2 years ago we decided to check again what was our seabirds bycatch. And that year we started a program of observers on board who had the objective of supervising that our longliners were satisfying all the friend of the sea requirements: seabirds, bycatch, pollution, I don't know, all the requirements of friend of the sea. And one of the issues, of course, is the seabirds bycatch. So we have 2 different persons in 4 different boats, in 4 different fishing trips. So there were on board more than 50 fishing days, and only was detected 2 interactions with seabirds. Both were during the hauling of the line. The seabirds were alive and they were released after the hauling, after the bycatch. And in both cases were seabirds that didn't belong to the red list. And last year we repeat the experience with the observers against of Datafish, that is a Spanish organization, and with the technology of marine instruments. We install a remote electronic monitoring system with 3 cameras. Number 1 supervise the setting of the line. Number 2, the hauling of the line, which the bycatch, discarding rate and catches. And number 3, detect the type of catches and also the size of catches. In this photo, you can see number 2, and also provides the position of the fishing boat and the date and the time. And this system was recording for 46 days, fishing days, and only 2 seabirds bycatch were detected. One was during setting, and the animal was not alive. And the second was during the hauling of the line, and the animal was released alive after the bycatch. And so after these 2 years of good results, we think that we are having now a low seabirds bycatch. So the instructions, the prevention operations of bycatch, we think are working properly, and we are going to continue with them. And also, we will continue with the observers program in order to check every year that this seabirds bycatch is low. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, and that's all. Thank you, Mario.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. Wow, my compliments for what you are doing, and this is a very, 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 very good example about the mitigation measures. Only 2 in 1 year is a very small number. Okay.
Only during the observers.
Yeah. Okay. So before we conclude this webinar, passing to the questions, I would like to start to launch a poll. And the question is, what is your forecast of seabirds population trends in the next decade? You can vote decline, stable, increase. Wow, you are voting so much. Wow. Okay, so let's wait a few seconds more. Okay, so 10 person answered. So 4 person decline, 2 stable, and 4 increase. The number is increasing of decline. So, oh, 15. Okay, so up to now 15 person has answered, 16 now. And yes, so somebody thinks that will decline, somebody will think that it will increase, somebody stable. We have the same results, more or less. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So now let's pass to the question. So, the first question is for you, Manuel. Okay. Is Puerto de Celeiro willing and available to provide knowledge transfer to other companies and fleets worldwide in regard to seabirds bycatch mitigation measures?
Puerto Celeiro is available, but fishing is different everywhere, so I think we cannot say to anyone what to do. Only we can provide our example, and if it is useful for someone, perfect, we are available.
Okay, so here there is a comment. Very good presentation, thanks. Okay. Then we have another question that is for me. Do you think that ghost nets and ghost fishing can also impact seabirds population? And what is FOSS doing in this regards? Well, yeah. I think that ghost nets and ghost fishing can impact seabirds too, population. So basically, what are ghost nets and ghost fishing is when fishing vessel is losing its net, and the net is floating for days, months, years at the sea, and is entangling whatever is encountering on its way. So from sharks to sea turtles to marine mammals and even to seabirds. So if we are doing something, yes, of course. We established a collaboration with an association called GGGI, Global Ghost Gear Initiative, that is a branch of World Animal Protection that is focusing on reducing the impact of ghost nets and ghost fishing gear floating at the sea. And thanks to them, we improved our FOSS-wide standard and introduced to the checklist new requirements that are asking to reduce the impact about the ghost nets. For example, we request to fishing vessels, in the case they encounter some ghost net fish, to take on board and dispose it at the port in order to be sure that it's not floating anymore. And it's working pretty well. So we will see. I hope the number of fishing companies that are applying these requirements will increase more and more and more in the next years. Okay, so another question. What would you like to see done in terms of policy and conservation measures by RFMOs and governments to help to protect seabirds? So, just to clarify, RFMOs are the regional fishery management organizations. So, Manuel, would you like to reply to this question?
Yes, when I was preparing the presentation, I asked to the fleet representing Celeiro about the European Union's requirements, laws about seabirds, and he explained to me that it was not clear, some recommendations, but not a real measures. So I think that maybe it must be improved, this part in Europe. Of course, we are not having big problems with albatross because albatross are not in the North Atlantic or only a small amount. But I think it should be more clear about seabirds regulations, what is allowed, what is not allowed.
Yeah.
And yes, I think it could be more clear.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I strongly suggest to our follower to go on our website and sign up our petition, because our petition is about to press government and RFMOs about this subject and argument, because we strongly believe these mitigation measures should be compulsory. And should be, that the fishing company should apply these mitigating measures. Because, there is another question. Well, it's a question from my side to you, Manuel, because I think it could be interesting. Can you tell us if it's complicated concretely to apply these mitigation measures like the lines and so on?
No, it's not. It's not difficult for us. It was easy. Only provide the instructions, how to provide the knowledge, how to improve it, and there was not any problem. No more work for the fishermen. No more complicated their job. No problem. On our side, no.
There are only advantages apparently on this, because it's not complicated, and then if seabirds are not entangled and so on, I guess it's better for the nets and your fishing gears too, because you can save them somehow, isn't it?
In our case, it was easy because night setting was something traditional. Only we have to be careful with the lights, and also use the torii lines in June this month. But the rest was traditional and something very easy, as is turn off the lights, the outside lights, while you are setting. It provokes very good results, as you can see. So no problem for us.
Yeah, nice to know it. There is another question that is, what was the specific role of Friend of the Sea in the process? I do not understand clearly the question. If you mean the process of Puerto de Celeiro or in the mitigation measures. If it's about the mitigation measures, basically our role is to create awareness and to promote these sustainable practices. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you want to clarify this question, I'm talking to the one that has wrote the question. Sorry.
I want to provide some information about this. In this case, for us, 6 years ago, when we were thinking who was a good partner to certificate our fishing fleet, we realized that Friend of the Sea had the highest requirements about some issues. I'm talking about discards, I'm talking about seabirds, etc. So I think that the Friend of the Sea standards are a very good tool to avoid seabirds bycatch.
Okay, thank you. I agree.
No, that's true. Because exactly our issue was the discards. We realized that the regulation that years about discards was very soft, and we have a low discarding rate. And we realized that Friend of the Sea really saw that companies that were having a good relationship between catches and discards. And probably that's the reason why we decided to certificate with Friend of the Sea. And with bycatch, seabirds bycatch is the same.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so so the question is, what was the specific role of FOSS in the process of certification and mitigation measures? Our role was to define the requirements of sustainability and to promote the mitigation measures. Is pretty simple, more or less. Okay. Okay, so at the moment we do not have any other questions. So if there are no any more questions, I would like to thanks again, Manuel, for this participation. It was really interesting, and I'm glad to have you as a guest for this webinar.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. And anything else? We will send you to all the participants, as I said at the beginning, the certificate of participation. And if you want to see again the video and so on, just write us. And please sign up our petition. Thank you very much to everybody. Have a nice day. Bye bye. Ciao Manuel. Grazie.
Ciao, gracias.
Ciao.
Ciao.